In this video, we're going to talk about addition and subtraction of polynomials. This is from 4.4 from the book. So let's talk about some vocabulary. So first of all, the first word we're going to discuss is term, which is an expression containing a number or product of numbers and one or more variables raised to powers. Okay, so an example here, 4x cubed, that's a term. So negative x squared y cubed, that's one term. ABC, one term. Negative 2, so just a number alone is one term, or just a variable alone could be a term, like z, right? Okay. So a coefficient is the number preceding a variable in a term. So the coefficient of this first example would be 4, right? So that's the coefficient. The coefficient of this, if you don't see a number there, there's an invisible 1, right? So the coefficient of this term would be negative 1. Coefficient of this term would be positive 1, right? Okay. So in some of these words you may have heard before, I think I've probably used some of these in class. All right, so polynomial. A polynomial is a single term or a sum of terms in which the powers of the variables are positive integers, right? So like here we have x cubed, x to the first, and so forth and so on. Okay, so you won't see any negative powers in a polynomial. All right, so these are all polynomials here, right? So we have a sum of terms, right? And it says sum of terms, but right, like if you have a difference, you can think of that as a sum of a positive and a negative, right? So this could be x to the fourth plus negative 6y to the fourth. So sometimes you'll see sums and or differences, right? So if it's a bunch of terms that you're adding or subtracting together, and that's what makes a polynomial. All right, so the degree of a polynomial is basically the highest exponent. The highest exponent in the polynomial. Okay, and this is a polynomial of one variable, right? So here we have the variable x is our one variable, and the highest exponent is 3. So this would be this would have a degree of 3, polynomial degree 3. All right. So then the term constant. So a constant is just a number without a variable, right? Just a single number. And so the 0 degree term is also called the constant term. So if we go back to that last example, so we have degree 3 here, degree 2, degree 1, right? And then this would be degree 0 because anything to the 0 power is 1. And so so we don't write the x to the 0 power, but that's the 0th degree term, okay? And that's also known as the constant, okay? All right. So, let's talk about the leading coefficient. So the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the first term if you write it in decreasing order, right? So going back to that last example, this polynomial here is written in decreasing order, right? Once again, 3, 2, 1, 0. And so the coefficient of the leading term, or the first term, the term with the highest exponent, is called the leading coefficient. All right. So these are terms that we'll use in class, and that'll help us to just kind of just so we have some context and some terms we can use to identify certain parts of polynomials. All right, so we talked about the degree of a polynomial, so now let's talk about the length of a polynomial, basically. So we have a monomial. So a monomial is a polynomial that just has one term, right? So mono means one. Okay, so a polynomial with one term, so like this would be a monomial, 3x to the fifth. All right, a binomial, what does bi mean? 2, right? So a binomial is a polynomial with two terms, okay? And so here we have two terms that we're adding or subtracting, right? So this would be a binomial here. All right, then of course a trinomial, tri means, that's right, it's 3. So we have 3 terms in a trinomial. So this would be a trinomial, the degree of 6, right? And a leading coefficient of 4. So constant is 2. So, those are the different terms that we've talked about. And we'll practice using these terms in class and in the assignment.